No, you write about one thing that you wanted to be when you grew up, and I don't know if this is what you really always dreamed about, but but yeah, like in high school, who did you
What
think
was
you were
it?
gonna be? The bartender. I fucking loved that you were like, I want to
Oh,
be
a
a
bartender.
bartender.
Oh, yeah.
But so I don't, was that something like in high
Yes.
school that you were already like, I can't wait to be a bartender? Or like, what did you think you were going to be? Do? What was your experience in
Well,
high school?
in high school, I probably thought I want to be someone famous. I want to write things, maybe write for SNL or do
Mhm.
something like that. But I don't know in what form. Writing tortured me. I hated writing essays. I hated deadlines. So at the same time as I was thinking I want to be a writer, I was also thinking, God help me, because I don't know what I would write and my life will be hell. So when I graduated from college, that's when I was like, I want to be a bartender, because I had no idea what to do with with my real talents. I was going to say other talents, but I was the least talented bartender anyone's ever met. I was so bad at it, except for the rapport I was good at, and that's what I had pictured. Like, I thought it would be sort of a runway to becoming a writer, because I would put my elbow on the bar and listen to people's troubles and deal with all kinds of characters and write and probably jot the stories down in a notebook and then write a novel out of it. That was probably what I imagined. But I also wanted a built-in social life. Like, I didn't want to get up and go anywhere. It's not like college was so hard and I took classes at 8 a.m. I didn't take classes till afternoon, in general. Like, I dropped Italian because class started at 9. Um, but getting out of college, I was like, thank God I can sleep now. And the last thing I wanted to do was go to a job that started at 9 or at 10 and wear pantyhose or anything like that. It's like, I want to be a bartender. I want work to start at 5 or 6 p.m. and have all these friends built in and work with hot guys who will finally like me and see how desirable I am, unlike everyone before them. Like, I pictured myself bartending side by side with like Tom Cruise, and maybe between Tom Cruise and Rob Lowe, and that kind of party, like, that's how it was going to be. And the reality was far from that, because first of all, nobody wanted to hire me for a bartending job. And then when I finally got one, it was at like just the biggest loser bar that had been hot on the Upper East Side. And it was like in the middle of the most just drab, big apartment buildings. And it was a kind of a Broville up there. There was a cluster of buildings called Normandy Court, but they were nicknamed Dormandy Court because it was all people like bros, sorority sisters, and frat
Oh,
boys living
dorm. Got it.
in, like, yeah, dorm, living like that with scrunchies, and the girls in scrunchies and boxers, and probably had keggers. And so that was my clientele at this bar when anybody came in. It had been popular, and then it wasn't. I came in when it wasn't, and I was a terrible bartender, and it didn't last long at all. And like, it didn't make my dreams come true. But meanwhile, I figured, like, if I'm not going to
Well,
get any jobs bartending, I might as well just go to bars like it's my job. And that's what I did that summer, and that for a whole year. I went to one or two bars like it was my job. I felt responsible for showing up every night and finding someone to make out with by, like, if 4 a.m. rolled around and and the bartender made that announcement, like, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. If I hadn't made out with somebody by then it was a lost night. So
but
that's
also,
what
I'm gonna go
that's
further
what
back.
that, yeah, career
I'm gonna go
looked like.
further back, but
Hmm.
since we're there too, and you're saying I made it, which again, I loved this so much. I have not read the book cover to cover yet, but I was like popping around and I like love that sort of thing. But like, yeah, so you're like, I've dreamed of being a bartender and like, and so like you were like going after it, like, yeah, like making it your job to show up at this bar like every night. But you also, it didn't even sound like you were drinking alcohol too. Because when people are listening and they're like, oh, I made
I
it my job,
wasn't. That's
that they are making up, you are getting wasted every single night. Like that's where I'm assuming people hear that are going. But no, you were like really like showing up, sitting in the front, like, come on, like, I just can't wait for them to like hire me. Which, by the way, that's how I got into being a sound engineer, which was my first dream. Like, I was like, I want to know what you guys are doing. I just never went away. And then they finally were
No
like,
way.
okay, fine, we're going to hire you. At House of Blue
If you're
Chicago.
gonna come in here every
I was like,
day,
it worked
is
for
that
me. I did have to get
I'm gonna make
invited.
myself indispensable, or if not indispensable, just like get rid ofable.
Yeah, I'm part of the family, and then they're gonna like eventually be like, I guess we're not getting rid of her. We're gonna have to start paying her. But I love that you did that to be a bartender, like not what people would expect, and no diss
Well, yes.
to bartenders. By the way, when I was working at House of Blue Chicago as a professional sound engineer, that's what one of my best friends from college and I joke, because I got her a job as a cocktail server. She worked like 4 hours a night and made 8 times what I did, working 20 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
And there were so many people
Well,
that
that's
were
what
bartenders
I thought,
and cocktail
yes.
servers there, that they had law degrees, they had these amazing degrees, but they just chose to continue being bartenders because they made so much money. Got to watch all all these
money,
shows.
and that's what I pictured.
Like, so I was like, I also get the like.
That's what I pictured for myself. Yeah. Yeah. I pictured just wads of cash. I mean, I was lucky if I made enough to take a cab home. But I pictured wads of cash, and that's what I would see when I went to a bar. When I went to a hot bar, I would see just wads of cash in these bartenders' hands, and they had all the power too. Like when you're a server in a restaurant, you have no power. People are looking at you, signaling like, "Hey, they're grumpy. Where's my food? You screwed up." When you're on the other side of the bar, when you're a bartender, you hold the power. People are begging you to serve them, and you're never in trouble. Like, you can be grumpy, you can be a jerk, and they like you even more, and they'll tip you even better. So I was like, that is the dream right there. That's where the power is. But then I really like my going out to the bar every night like it was my job. It wasn't just, I kind of gave up on them hiring me. It was more that I was making up for lost time in high school. Like in high school, I felt like boys don't like me, and I wasn't one of the cool kids who went to clubs. I went to one club once, and that was Studio 54, and it was a disaster. But I wasn't in that crowd that went out to Palladium and Peppermint Lounge and Studio and Pyramid Club every weekend or weeknights even, and had a group and made out and even more than that, like that they were all sexually active and hot. And I was not one of those people. And so I wanted to, when I got out of college that year, I felt like I was making up for lost time by basically being a bar hoe and sledding around. It's like, that's how I'm going to measure my self-worth, because I failed at it in high school because boys didn't like me. And now I'm going to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that sort of like that measuring your self-worth in, like getting the attention of the other, whatever, of sexual attention, I guess, of anyone,
Right.
whatever your orientation might be.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm the same thing.
Right.
So I was in high school. I was always the best friend. So guys liked me, loved me as the best friend. So, and still in my life,
friend
which is
zone.
a real mind fuck, because I'm like, I'm awesome. These people love these awesome men.
Yeah.
Love being around me, but like only not with me. What is like so that was it. But yeah, I remember just sort of like, I remember so badly wanting to have a boyfriend, or just guys called me just so I could say that guys called me, or that I had a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And like, I remember this one guy that we met being out somewhere, and he liked me, but I didn't like his outfit. Like, I really was like, so then he was interested in me and like got my number, and I was like, yeah, so-and-so called me, just so like went to school to brag about it. But then like I didn't go out with him because I didn't like his outfit. And then the next time I saw him, he looked hot. He was wearing a good outfit, but I screwed myself over. He wasn't interested in me anymore.
Sometimes you got to bet on the dark horse. Yeah. I hate it when that happens.
But like so superficial.
No,
Like I wanted so badly but it was like, if I can say that
Oh,
I have a boyfriend or somebody calling me, then that means that I'm like worthy enough, likable, like not just by guys, but then girls. Like, let me be able to tell the
exactly.
girls that guys like me, and then that will be the thing that like makes me acceptable as a human. So
Oh,
fucked up.
yeah. Right. No, I remember going for a sleepover at my friend's house. It was a friend from camp, and we were 13 or 14. I guess we were 14. And her friend came over, her friend Amy came over, and Amy had recently gotten hot. Like she'd gotten, gotten curvy over the summer and was wearing big hoop earrings and looked super cute and had gotten her braces off. And I remember her lying on the floor being like exhausted. And she's like, ugh, guess who likes me now? And she was just so tired of winning, like so tired of having guys like her. And I was like, I've never in my life said that. Guess who likes me now? Like, it would be like, guess what? Somebody likes me. That would be the news.
Yeah. But and mine would be like, somebody
So,
likes me, but
yeah.
like I would never like that person back. The people that liked me,
Right.
I was
Oh,
like,
no, I didn't like anybody. No, I didn't like anybody who liked me. Like if they liked me, something was wrong with that. That was more like probably later in life. If they were available, no, thank you. Um, but
oh,
like if they liked me and they were taken, then I had to act on it. Then they were a prize.
oh my
If
gosh.
they liked me just outright and were totally available, then no thanks. And there's something wrong with it. Not good enough.
So, okay, going back, so you did go to college. Did you go to college and study
Yeah.
writing? Because you mentioned like you were interested in writing, but also like didn't want to do the work of writing, but that like, or what was the path? Was it just like you graduated high school and so must go to college? That's the necessary next step and not really like know what you were studying, but like, I have to go to
Oh,
college.
Oh yeah, there was never a question about going to college, like whether or not to go to college. I went to pretty prestigious all girls high school I mean, it was a full school, K through 12 in New York, and we would never even consider not going to college. So yes, I went to college and not for vocational reasons. It was a liberal arts college, and did study English. I became an English major. And that was mostly because I liked reading novels and hated reading textbooks. So there was nothing else I wanted to study. Like just the reading textbooks would be too much pressure, and I didn't want to do that. So I would take any course where the course material was fiction. That was what I wanted to do, and did not know. I felt like, yeah, I would like to do something that involves writing after college, but I didn't really study it so much in college. I like took a strange psychology, like Psych 101 class that involved creative writing, because the professor he called himself a black lesbian trapped in the body of a white man, and it was a very strange form of psychology class, and like had us write, I guess, feminist creative writing. So that was really the only writing that I dabbled in college. And I wrote probably one piece for the school paper, but didn't do anything that would promote me, like further my career in writing.
And what was, excuse me, what was your like parent stance on, you know, college, post college? Like I make up, they probably weren't like, go after that bartending dream, Laura, or were they? Were they
Oh,
just like whatever makes you
no,
happy?
no. My dad felt like anything that showed industry and made some money, he was good with. He liked that. What he didn't like was me sleeping till noon and then going out from like 11 or midnight till 4. But he wasn't super happy about that lifestyle. When I said that I was going to look for bartending jobs, my mom was like, ah, really? Is that what you want to be, a bartender? And I was like, well, it's what I want to be for now. But she gets way ahead of herself, and so thinks that you know like that announcement, like I'm going to look for a bartending job, means I'm going to be a bartender for the rest of my life, and in my 40s I'll be slinging martinis to pimps and hookers across from Port Authority. So,
Well, I
so
feel
she
like
wasn't so into that.
I feel like until fairly recently, that's how most people did think about work, job, career. That it was like you pick something once you become the age of like adult, whether you pick a trade or
Yeah.
you go to college or something, and then that is what you do for the rest of your life. Like I feel like in the last, I don't know what time is anymore. I was going to say last few years, but maybe it's the last decade. That it is more like, oh, right, you can be this and then be this and then be that and then do that. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's how most people, especially parents, have thought. Like, yeah, like you go, high school, go to college or pick a trade, and then that's what you do for the rest of your life. And thank God we're not thinking like that anymore.
Yes, thank God is right. Well, my parents had both pivoted in their careers and were great examples of that for me, that what you do doesn't have what you do as a young adult in your 20s or in your 30s or even in your 40s doesn't it's not your career isn't written in stone. My father switched from he was an industrial engineer for the airlines, for Eastern Airlines when it was around, and I think American before that, and became a psychotherapist when I
Oh,
was pretty young, when I was like around 4 or so. I mean, it was like a 10-year journey to getting his PhD. So he was, for most of my childhood, he was becoming a psychotherapist, but he practiced and found his life's work. I mean, he just loved what he did so much that he never wanted to retire. He wanted to keep doing what he would say, I'm never quitting. I'm never retiring. I love what I do. I love helping people. He just loved it. And my mom, probably somewhat inspired by him, and also forced to change things up because she had had kids and couldn't have a full-time job. She had been in the she was a musicologist. She had a PhD and was a doctor technically before my dad. She had a PhD in music and worked in the recording industry before I was born. She was they called her the lady engineer, and she worked at Vanguard Records and recorded people like Country Joe and the Fish and Joan Baez, etc. And then when I was in my teens, my dad made her read, What Color is Your Parachute, and take a course. He was very into this stuff. He got her to take a course in finding her passion, her career passion, and it came with an internship, and she found that she wanted to work in publishing, and she got an internship in children's book publishing, and that's what she stuck with for the rest of her life. And she's still involved in the Bank Street Children's Book Committee. She was president of it. She's in her 80s now. She's 85, so still obsessed with children's books. So both of them were examples for me of the possibility of switching careers, of not having to have what you did set in stone. And I think it planted the seed for me that I probably won't find something I want to do for the rest of my life until maybe the second half of my life.
wow. Yeah, what a rare, I feel like, again, now
Yeah.
more so, less rare, but I feel like that for like, yeah, growing up with parents like that and that, yeah, your dad having your mom take a passion test back. I mean, that was probably before it was online, right? Like,
Oh,
that's
there was no online.
what I'm
There
saying.
was
Like it was
what
like an actual
online is
like
that's what you
male.
stood on to for the movies. Yeah.
Wow, that's also incredible that your mom was a female engineer because I was a live sound engineer and it's so rare to have females in either thing. So yeah, that was so
Yes.
I was like all
Still,
like got the
huh?
chills when you talked about that. Yeah, yeah, still. I mean, there's more, but still it's a much bigger percentage of male than female. But how yeah, that is
Yeah.
such a great example to have grown up with and that you then didn't have that like pressure because I feel like there often is this pressure on you have to figure out what you're going to be for or do for the and that it
Yeah.
is that it's do but we make it is be right like it's like we got to pick a career
B.
but it's not
Yes.
do but we're like who are we going to be in the world and that is what we must do and like that's why I often talk about high school because it can be like when you're starting of like what's next what am I gonna be and you're starting to like then figure out like then that's it is your self-worth your everything what you think people think about you all this for the rest of your life on like who I am based on your career a lot of times or non-career.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't feel pressure necessarily to decide what I'm going to be for the rest of my life, but there was definitely pressure to get some kind of job. And I was terrified of any job that where I would have to wear pantyhose and report to somebody by a certain time in the morning, especially. And any of the jobs I looked at, I would just write them. I mean, I would look at the classifieds pretty much every day during that year where I was trying to bartend and just going out. And I would look for anything that said creative job, like creative opportunity. And they all turned out to have deal breakers. Like the next line would be, must be a self-starter. So I was like, well, that excludes me. Or must be detail oriented. I'm like, I can scratch that one off. Not me yet again. And then they would usually turn out to be any of these that were promising at all would turn out to be for selling printers or phone sex. So I
What
couldn't
about
find
selling
anything in the
vacuums?
classifieds at all.
I feel
And
like selling vacuums was a
selling
big
vacuums, that
thing
was
at a point.
probably one of them. Yes. Yeah,
Um,
I think it was. And so, yeah, it was really hard to find that thing that I wanted a dream job. I wanted something that would tap my talent, but in what way I didn't know, like use my writing skills in some way that didn't require me to be lonely and sad and under pressure. So I don't know what kind of writing that would be. I didn't know. I did finally find something, but yeah, I wanted a dream job. I wanted something that I loved to do, and I refused to do anything I didn't enjoy, which is probably what they call spoiled.
maybe, maybe spoiled, but also like how awesome. How
Yeah.
awesome. Like, because most people don't have that perspective. And also, you knew yourself. Okay, I am not a self starter. I am not detail oriented. Like, that says something
Hmm.
about you. Like, you're not willing to just, do these things or like
Yeah.
self aware, self aware. So what
Yeah.
happened
I knew my weaknesses.
after the bartending trials? What was your next journey?
Yeah, after I was fired from my second bartending job, which was in literally the shittiest bar in New York, it was like the day I started there was the day after a rocker named Gigi Allen played, who his whole act was over the course of several songs. He would take an X-Lax candy bar before the show and then shit himself on stage and throw it at the audience. So that was the kind of bar I was working in, and got fired fairly quickly because I was so bad at it. And soon after that, as that was the next winter after I graduated from college, and then that summer, a friend from high school called me. She called me probably 10:30 or 11 a.m. and was like, sorry, didn't mean to wake you. I was like, what? You didn't wake me. I don't sleep this late. But of course, I was in bed. And she's like, I'm working with this author, Lisa Birnbach, whose name I knew. She was very famous. She had written the Preppy Handbook, which was huge back then when I was in high school. And she's like, we're working on her college book. I'm in the office with her right now. We need fact checker. We're fact checking and we need more fact checkers. Can you come in? And I was like, you mean today? She was like, yeah, today. It's like, oh, I almost said no because I'm like, crap, that means I can't go to my step aerobics class at the gym, and I was going to stay in bed for a little while longer, and like, I want to watch all my children, etc. But I was like, okay, fine. I do need to do some kind of work. Maybe it'll be fun. So I went in, and that job turned into everything else. That led to everything else in my life because Lisa liked me. I had a good time. It was a really fun job. It didn't last for that long, but she took me under her wing, and after she finished the book, went to a magazine as deputy editor. It was called Spy Magazine. It was like the cool downtown publication in New York, like a satirical publication. I think New York Magazine has a lot of its DNA, and so does The Cut. And so she was going there, and she got me an internship. And so I sucked at this internship. It was 6 months, and I really the only thing I did fairly well was Xerox. It was my job to Xerox the gossip packs, which was all the gossip pages of any of the newspapers every day, and put them on editors' desks. I didn't even do that well. I should have done it early in the morning before they got there, but I didn't. I got there after they did, which was typical of me. And I was supposed to come up with stories. Like they wanted interns to become editors. It was really an opportunity to show your chops. And so one of my responsibilities was to come up with stories for the magazine. And I remember just the time flying by and me saying, I still haven't come up with anything, still don't have any ideas. And the managing editor took me to lunch and told me, you can take initiative here. And I was like, oh my God, when you're told you can take initiative, that shows you have the opposite of initiative. I'm like, that's not something that I have. But I was lucky enough. So I didn't become an editor. I didn't find that story, that like, bombshell of a story that blows up the headlines. And I was lucky enough to get hired by the ad side. When my internship was up, the ad side said, hey, we'll take her. Like, we have a position here. And they hired me. It was mostly admin stuff, which I'm terrible at, as we've established. But they had one assignment, a writing assignment for me. It was something that nobody on the editorial side wanted. It was an advertorial for a Doer Scotch. And if you're listening and don't know what an advertorial is, it's those pages in the magazine that look like they're part of the magazine, but in tiny print at the top, it says advertisement or promotion. And this was for Doer Scotch. And I was tasked with writing a full page of material for it, content. And one thing I wrote was a short essay on being an adult, which was ironic because I was still living in my childhood bedroom. And then the other thing was a quiz that I wrote called Do You Party Like Your Uncle Marty? And it was a quiz to find out whether you are a young hipster or an old fart loser. And if you determined you were an old fart loser, the remedy was to drink Doer Scotch with the recipe in the sidebar. So it was really fun to write. And then
those are the things that you wrote that got picked up.
Yeah, those were I had a full page in Spy magazine. I don't think I had a byline, but it was mine. I realized, or I maybe was told, that's copywriting. I'm like, oh, that's what copywriting is. It's like writing short, fun things that I guess are part of advertising, but not really an ad. And that was the start of my copywriting career. It's like, I can do this. I can do copywriting. And then the next job I had was way less suited for me, Spy folded, and I went to another magazine that was way more corporate and buttoned up. It was one of my favorite magazines and still is, but the culture there was very different, and I did not fit in, and my boss hated me. And I have a chapter in my book, Tough Titties, called Bad at Corporate, and that's all about really how much she hated me, and reasonably so, because I was just the worst employee. And I may have mentioned a couple of times that I'm late. I'm not very good at being on time, especially in the morning. So that was an issue. I didn't want to write in the tone that she liked, which she described as elegant and up here, which she would say while waving her hand above her head, which is the symbol for over my head. But she would always say it needs to be up here and do that gesture. And so I lasted 6 months there. And I was so bad at being on time. She curbed my what were called summer hours. She would always say, do you want summer hours? Because I would show up late and you had to show up an hour early if you wanted summer hours, which was getting to leave early on Fridays. So on Fridays, when everybody else was leaving the office with like their jackets, hooked on their thumb over their shoulders and like a weekend bag, like going to the Hamptons. Yeah, have a nice weekend. I had to stay late. I had detention. I had to stay late and write the department newsletter. And
you had detention. That was your actual.
That was detention. It really was. She did it as a punishment. It was, and I would have to stay like past 6 writing this newsletter. And she would stay late just to make sure I did my job and that it got distributed. But I tried to have fun with it. I was as subversive as I could possibly be with it and would make jokes like, is that a one sheet in your pocket? Or are you just happy to see me? Kind of headlines like that. And people really loved it. They would come up to me and say, I now love the newsletter. I actually read the newsletter now. And I didn't realize it, but it was a precursor for what I do now, because now most of my living comes from writing newsletters, writing my emails to a list.
Wow. Okay, so going back to the first, like, you came on as a fact checker, and that was just someone called you because, like, they were just like, they knew you and like likely knew you were available,
They
right?
knew
Like,
me.
and just like,
Yeah, they knew I
she
was
doesn't-
probably sleeping.
Yeah, she doesn't have a job, a real
she doesn't have
job.
a
or
job.
We'll just call like whatever.
Sure, Laura's free. Yeah.
And so that worked out. And then when you went to the publication and like I said, you did the internship and then the ad, people took you on or something. There must have been something about it even before you found like, oh, this is copy and I think I enjoy writing it, that made you stay. Because it sounds like you are not the type of person who would have just hung out when like, oh, okay, and I guess I don't have initiative and I guess this, but like, right? So was there something about being in that environment, like, that made you stick with it even though you weren't really sure what you were, doing or what it would lead to?
Yeah.
Like
It
being
was a
around those
fun
types
place
of
to
people
be.
or...
I mean, it was the best social life I've ever had. I mean, there were parties constantly. I was, 22, 23, 24. And it was just a fun bunch of people, and all our friends became friends, and it was a good hang. And I would spend, even when I was an intern making $50 a week, I would spend all of it at Coffee Shop, which was like this cool restaurant down the block. But we were in Union Square, and that Union Square was up and coming, and it was like teeming with models on go-sees, and Coffee Shop was where you'd see like party promoters and supermodels when either of those things had cachet. So it was just it was a fun place to be. People were funny. I mean, it was kind of a humor magazine, so that I met a lot of funny people, and my hours were fairly lax, maybe because I didn't get in trouble for them. And I think I felt like myself there. I felt liked. I felt appreciated. I think I would go to staff meetings and make jokes, and people liked them and thought I was funny. So it was just a nice place to be, even when I was doing work that I didn't really like. And I didn't have to wear pantyhose. I wore baby tees, which I had also worn to my corporate job after. They didn't really go over well. Like, everyone was wearing power suits and I was wearing baby tees. And I remember like one of the guys saying, "Oh, it's pretty nippy in here," like to his friend. I was like, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm still wearing my baby tees."
And when you went to that corporate job, was that like you discovered, oh, this is copywriting, when you ended up doing the whatever they're called, I was like saying
The
advertorials.
advertorial.
Oh, it is that. Okay, I was like, but I just said it in a weird way. Okay.
Adver.
Adver. I didn't
Yes,
put ver in.
advertorial.
So was that when you were leaving,
Adver.
that place folded and you were like, oh, okay, I'm a copywriter. So when you went to the corporate job, was it like, oh, they're hiring a copywriter? Like, was that, I am now a copywriter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So a friend of mine from Spy went to this next job, and I would talk to her on the phone a lot, and she was like, "It's really hard. I eat lunch at my desk, if at all." And it didn't make me envy her at all or want to work there. But then Spy was folding, and she said, "Hey, there's a job here. There's an opening for a copywriter. They really need somebody talented." And I gave them your name. And I was a little resistant. I was like, I don't really know if I want to work there. But I interviewed anyway because I needed a next job. And I was kind of hoping I wouldn't get the job. And then I did get the job. And I went for it. It's like, it's a good stepping stone. It'll be good on my resume. It'll be good for getting the next thing, that whatever it is that I really want. And copywriting there was way less fun. but I still felt like, oh, I want to do this kind of writing. I want to write short, fun things, more fun than at the corporate place. It wasn't fun, but they were short. And and I had lunch with a friend. It was the friend who brought me there. Her husband came in to meet the two of us for lunch, and he had a new job at VH1. And I said, "So what is your job?" And and I'm a TV head, like always obsessed with TV. It's been my life since I was out of the womb. Um, he said, "I watch a whole bunch of TV, and then I write those little spots that are during the commercials, but they're ads for the shows." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's a job. I need that job." And he helped me get that job. I went and got that job. He
Oh, is that what
introduced
happened
me
next
to
from the
this
corporate
is
job?
that's what happened next after the corporate job. I
Amazing.
was fired after 6 months, got my pink slip, went home. I thought I was going to have another period of, I'm sure my parents were like, oh no, here she goes again. Like she's going to sleep till noon and go out till 4. And that was sort of my plan, but pretty soon, um, this friend of mine set me up with a meeting with the editorial director at VH1, and it was the 90s. There was money. There was money to spend, and she hired me to write a promo. She was like, "Yeah, sure. Here's a promo you can write. We need this campaign for like the 12 Days of Christmas sweepstakes." And so I wrote my first promo for them, and then became part of the like VH1 family. And as a freelancer, I kept getting hired to write more spots, and then also got hired to write scripts, countdown scripts for, they had these top 10 countdowns and top 20 countdowns. And so my job for those was to write like puns on Hootie and the Blowfish, and
Wow.
and jokes about the cranberries or Sheryl Crow. Up next it's Sheryl Crow. All she wants to do is is stay on the top 10, and here she is with all I want to do. So that was my job for a while, and then I got the holy grail of promos, like that I always had my eye on since I started that job, was at Nick at Night. They had the best promos on TV that I loved even before I knew what promos were, when I was just home watching Nick at Night. And I got somebody introduced me to somebody at Nickelodeon, and I got hired to write some like a radio trivia contest or something for the Munsters, and that led to getting a job at Nick at Night
Wow.
through
And
a
when you're
few
like saying the
connections I made
job,
there.
like you're the dream job for promo, it wouldn't necessarily be like any promo writer's dream job. It was your dream job, like because you liked like that content sort of thing, or was it like like what I mean? Like,
Yes.
was it the job itself, or was like you realized yourself and how you like to
I
write or something?
I think, I mean, that was they were known for great promos and would win awards at Promax, which I wasn't aware
Oh,
of at all, but I loved the tone of the network. It was tongue in cheek, it was funny. It was this very kind of curatorial, mock 50s serious kind of voice. Where I had seen their spots, and they'd have spots like talking about, did you ever watch The Partridge Family? Were you too young? It might be
I don't know if I'm
before.
too
Okay, it's before your
young. I
time,
just don't really like. It wasn't one of
or
my
it's just
shows.
not wasn't your show.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of your shows. It was always like Brady versus Partridge Family,
Oh yeah,
but
Brady for sure. Brady.
there was a thing. Yes, so there was one spot that I'd seen on TV before I knew about promos that was about Ruben and his hairpiece. Ruben was their manager, and his hairpiece would, like, whenever he raised his eyebrows, his hairpiece would shift. And so the spot kind of called that out and said, it's the Reuben hair shift, and it's part of our television heritage. And so it's this very curatorial kind of museum lens on something ridiculous. And I thought that was so funny. I was like, I want to be where they write things like that.
Got it, and you got it.
So
You
it was
got
my
there.
dream job. Yeah. hmm I got there.
And so, what? So these are sound like the absolute most incredible positions. And I also love that you didn't like, you had no idea even what copywriting was, that you didn't like go to school to be a
Mm-mm.
writer. I just, it's like we always think like, yeah, we have to like figure all these things out. I'm like, yes, to studying and learning things, but also like, I don't know. I love hearing those journeys and that, yeah, that seems like a pretty top notch position.
It was pretty good, and the only way I could ever have gotten it was by, I'd say, ducking under the ropes. I mean, I consider myself a late bloomer. I take a long time to do things. Usually I am late to the party, missing the boat, like letting trends pass me by. Like, oh, I should have gotten in on TikTok in 2020, that kind of thing. And I've always felt that way, kind of, but the only way I could get a job like this was by ducking under the ropes and not paying my dues. So I really skipped a step. I don't know if that's in tandem with being a late bloomer or in opposition to it, but the usual path there would be to get an internship, or a job as a PA, producer's assistant, and work your way up and show, like, pay your dues, anticipate people's needs, get things done, and show what you're made of. And a job like that would have shown what I was not made of, which was the right stuff for a job like that. I would have
Right.
failed at it.
Right.
So the only way I could get these primo jobs were by kind of working around outside the system, and I got very lucky.
So like in all of those things you were just saying about yourself, oh, a late bloomer, I'm not this, I'm not that. Have you always been someone that just owned and accepted those things about yourself? Or did there were there times and even maybe still that you are like, oh, I wish I was like this. Oh, I'm a this and it's a bad thing. Because I don't think I think that's what we do as humans. We make everything harder about ourselves instead of seeing, oh, yeah, I'm like this. Oh, okay, I'm a little slower. Oh, I enjoy like sleeping in. That's not a bad thing. That we're like
Yeah.
constantly like acting as if we have to be another way and the we must be wrong for the way that we are. And throughout and in the book and too, like you are very, which I've forgotten everything I've read while we're talking. But I also loved how you very much, or is it even the subtitle? But like you're very much like, yeah, like I'm a, like you're calling yourself lazy and these things where it doesn't ever feel like, and that's wrong. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, like this is like
Yeah.
just even who, yeah. What's the subtitle? I'm blank at it, and I don't have it in front of me.
It's it's on living your best life when you're the effing worst.
Okay, well, yes, you do call yourself the
And
effing worst, so I guess that's part of it.
yes. Yes, I am. I mean, and people say, like, "Oh, I know that's not true." Like, as if I'm not saying that I'm a bad person, that I'm the worst person. I'm
Oh,
just the
honey, don't
worst.
talk to
When you
yourself,
find
talk
yourself
about yourself like
apologizing,
that.
saying, right, exactly. It's just like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm the worst. And then someone might agree, yeah, you are, because either I'm late, I let something fall through the cracks, I'm canceling, I'm going to your party, etc. Like, I'm sorry, I'm the worst. And I feel like you know, I've disappointed people on occasion, especially in a professional setting. Like, your deadlines, you were supposed to have that in today. I thought you were going to, bring scripts. Ugh, I'm so sorry. I'm the worst. And so that's not necessarily a quality in myself that I cherish, but I do accept it. I think that some of it is just ingrained. And one thing that I talk about in the book, I think it's in the chapter Tap That Talent, a 20 something Odyssey, about trying to find my thing. It's a career chapter. Um, I talk about a guy that my friend was dating who was in film school. This is when we were in our early 20s, and he was in film school. And he would, when he stayed over at our place, he would get up super early in the morning, like 5 a.m., and leave probably to go fuck somebody else, but also to under the premise that he was going to mail his student film on VHS tape out to zines, to every time she saw him, he had someone else that he needed to mail it to. a zine, a festival, this or that. And we marveled at his ability to get up early and go to the post office. And we called it, because neither of us could imagine doing that. Like, I won't go to the post office. I'm pathological about it. And we called it the post office gene. And we knew he was going to be big because he had the post office gene. And sure enough, he is one of the highest earning, highest grossing filmmakers of all time in the US. I mean, his films have the highest box office gross internationally anywhere. Rich as Croesus. And I chalk it up to the post office gene. And so it's just something that I'm lacking. It's genetic. I just don't have it. And like, are we capable of change? Yes, to some extent. And there's certain habits that I've created in myself that I'm very proud of. For instance, I now unpack the minute I come home from vacation. I unpack my suitcase, and I used to let it sit and molder for like 2 weeks, or like live out of it. Like, where's my underwear? Where's the clean underwear? And fish around for it. And now I unpack the second I get home. So that has shown me like, oh, I am capable of creating new habits and becoming a slightly different person, but not an entirely different person. Like, I have to accept my nature.
I love that so much. And I love also that, even again, from like that younger age of like seeing like not Lord of like even that you called it like the post office gene. Because it'd be one thing to just be like, wow, okay, that person has initiative, and why, again, because so often I think as humans, we make ourselves wrong. Oh, we're so lazy, again, as if it's a bad thing. Oh, we could ever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, again, but it sounded you like accepted it, not only accepted, but like, yeah, we don't, oh, like, good for, wow, must have that gene. We don't have that gene.
Right.
And like, great. So we don't have that. And also there's a possibility, sure, maybe one day, I guess I could be so excited about something I might, but like, great, I'm also okay now. And even the unpacking example, which that's also something in the last few years that I have started to do. And I'm like, who am I? Who is this person? Interesting that I just suddenly unpack as soon as I get home. Who is this
miraculous person?
But it wasn't the person who left that there.
Miracle.
There was nothing wrong with her. Like, that's how she used to unpack and travel. Like, good too, that we don't have to be like making ourselves wrong for all the like who we are and that, and like that, and the changing, where I think we make our lives so hard for ourselves by like, they're like that, so I should be like that, or there's something wrong with me or that, or blah, blah, which my book that came out last year is F the shoulds, do the one. So I'm all about like, again, being aware of all these things. Like, wait, why do I think like I should be different? I should be doing this. I should be blah, blah, blah. And one of the things in my book that I ended up writing that felt so good to say out loud and admit to myself in a good way was like, I'm not like a super motivated person. Like, I've done a lot of awesome shit in my life and I'm really proud of myself. But like, too, like, I love laying and I love being lazy. I love singing and like saying that. Like, I'm not like different than you. I'm not some awesome like, I wasn't born with like the post office gene or whatever too, but like, great, I can make these things happen that I want to, or in this way, but like, yeah, I'm not making myself feel bad for like that. Like, yeah, we're always making ourselves feel bad for just who we are. And I love like in your stories and in your book and how you've been talking, it's just like, and that's who I am, and yeah, I wasn't gonna be like that. No, initiative, I guess I don't have that. That doesn't mean something's wrong with you. And you may have later creative initiative.
It's like I'm never gonna be a super fast runner. I'm not gonna win any sprints or go to the Olympics for my running. So, and I don't feel bad about that. So why should I feel bad that am also never going to have the post office gene? I mean, I do think there's something to be said for creating habits that make your life easier. And some of my traits make my life harder. And those are the things that are probably worth changing. Like, lateness, for example, I struggle with it. I don't like being late. It makes my life harder. I sweat about it. I panic about it. And I'm like, gosh, it would be such a kindness to myself if I left the house earlier, started getting ready earlier. Like, why don't I build in extra time? It's a strange thing. But things like laziness and loving to lie around and loaf, I think it's not just something I accept, it's something and embrace. It's something that I have come to realize is an advantage over a lot of people I know, especially women, who are uncomfortable with their day if it's not totally blocked out, if it's not booked up. And I can't think of anything worse than looking at my schedule and seeing meetings back to back to back to back, or tasks back. I want to look at my day and see nothing. That is my ideal day. And I feel now more than ever, now that I like hearing all these people talk about their, especially women talk about their anxiety about having free time or relaxing, I feel like it's an advantage that I don't measure my self-worth in how busy I am or how hard I work. I don't find that to be that's not something I value.
Same, same. And I too can see how like in some ways I'd be like, oh, that person's like this, or and I remember having this moment too of like, I guess, oh, we're just different. Like, because I especially too, I used to tour as a live sound engineer, and I would come home from tour, and then it was like, great, if I wasn't touring, then I was going to be in bed watching streaming things from my computer before even Netflix existed. It was like freetv.com, like the weirdest, buggiest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm going to be in bed watching this
I love
for
those sites.
days. Loved it. And I would then, and I love that about myself. And then I would realize other people came in from tour and like woke up early and like did things and like were productive. And, and I was
God.
like, for a moment, I was like, oh no, is something wrong with me that I do this? And I should be like able to be busy again. And then I was just like, oh my God, are they okay? Do they know that they can rest?
Exactly.
Like then it wasn't then realizing that some people do just are better productive. But then I also noticed some of those people, like they feel like they're not allowed to rest. Like how dare they? How dare they be lazy?
Right.
That they have to be productive, that blah, blah, blah. And that they would feel bad about themselves if they laid in bed, like letting their body rest. And so now I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I don't have that.
Club lazy, man.
Lazy. Love it. Okay, I want to talk some more about so you must have eventually got some sort of initiative because like I've known about you for years for being this master copywriter, teaching people to write copy, all of these things. So at some point you must have some initiative to start your own business. How did that come about?
It actually, I would never have set about to start a business. It would never have occurred to me like, oh, I'm going to have a business and, and hire people to help me with it. And I always thought a business was for someone with a business blueprint, a business plan that they went out to raise money for, et cetera. Or that entrepreneurship was for people who created an app or a line of shapewear. It never would have occurred to me to start a business. And mine really started kind of by accident. That I was in promos and I was freelance / permalance at a couple of places and started taking on other clients and started calling my, what I did, rather than saying I'm a freelance writer, I would say I have a promo writing business. It felt more prestigious and I felt like it helped me charge more too. And then I segued into copywriting for entrepreneurs and people like that, people with their own businesses, helping them with their website copy, their email copy, all kinds of stuff like that they needed help with. And really built the business around that, the business that is now Talking Shrimp. I put up a website called talkingshrimp.com and started taking clients, and these things were accidental. I put up the website because our tax accountant told me and my husband that we should incorporate because we'd been reamed on taxes our first year after being married. So he's like, the two of you should incorporate. It'll be better for taxes. Pick a name, preferably something with an available URL in case you want to use it. And we came up with Talking Shrimp. It's like something that meant nothing or anything that applied to what my husband did. He was in restaurants, or what I did. I was in writing, and I wasn't planning to use it for anything but showcasing my promo reel to get more promo writing clients. And it wasn't like, this is my business now. But I ended up I was advised by my friend Marie Forleo, who was very early in the online business world, to put an opt-in on there to get email subscribers. I didn't know to what end, but she was like, "Trust me, your list is gold," and
Wait, like when
to
was
start a
this?
blog. Okay, so this was in 2009 was when we
So that's
incorporated.
very
I bought.
early.
I
That's
thought it was
early
so late.
online
She
coaching
told me,
business, whatever, with the
yes,
opt-in.
it is. It is. And she told me, I when my friend Marie told me, like, "Oh, you're gonna have a blog, right?" And I was like, ugh, isn't it too, it's 2009. It's way too late to have a blog. She's like, "Are you kidding me? No, you have to have a blog. You of all people, you love to write, you should have a blog." I felt like 2006 was the time to have a blog. And she pretty much forced me to have an opt-in. She's like, "What's going to be your opt-in?" I said, "My what in?" And she's like, "No, you have a freebie. You get people to sign up for your freebie by putting in their email address, and then you send them this automatic confirmation message." She diagrammed it all on a legal yellow pad at her kitchen table. Um, and for once in my life, I followed instructions because she really knew what she was talking about. And she was making such great money. She was a coach. And she had these, I remember telling my husband about it. I would say, "Marie has this group coaching program. I don't know what it is, but she talks to a group of people on the phone, like all together as a group, like once a month, and makes $1,000 from each of them and makes like $25,000 a month." And my mind was just blown. He was like, "I have no idea what you just told me. I don't know what any of that means." But I was like, I'm gonna listen to her when she tells me to do something, even though I had no desire to become a coach or have a group coaching I didn't know what that was. So I put up an opt-in and I started a blog and started taking clients because she asked me to speak at her. She had a live event. It was her first live event called Rich, Happy, and Hot Live, and it was 50 people in the Soho House library. And she asked me to give a talk on copywriting. And so I just gave a talk on what I knew about copywriting. It had nothing to do with like direct response online copywriting. It was based on what I knew from writing promos. And people came up to me after that talk and started asking me, like, "Hey, I'm a realtor. I really need help with my website copy. Can you help me? You're a copywriter. Can I hire you?" And I'd say, "Oh, yeah, sure. Sure, I can take that kind of client too. Why not?" And I found out that I could charge whatever I wanted. Like these people were willing to invest in themselves and their businesses, whereas in promos, there was a budget. There's a department budget. And when I asked for what I thought I was worth, people would say, like, "Oh, wow, that's more than I make." Or they'd say, "Well, you really have," what would they say? They'd say, "You are a good businesswoman, I'll tell you that." Meaning like that's some chutzpah. And but these private clients were willing to pay whatever I asked them, and I wasn't ripping anyone off. I was just asking what I thought my writing was worth, and
And
it made
and
them
they could
money. My
see
copy made them money.
exactly. Yeah, they could
They
see
could
that
see
I'm going to pay
results.
this and it is going to
Yes,
change my business, so I'm going to make this back. So yes, I am happy to pay you this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it got them results in terms of sales and also in terms of them feeling good about their copy. Like, "Oh, it doesn't sound salesy. It sounds like a person. I really love sharing my website now." And the more they shared it, the more business they would get. So I felt like I was providing real value and charging accordingly. And so I loved this kind of client. And I ended up segueing like that was around the time when I was getting a little complacent in promos. I'd been there for like 15 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
B, I was let go by my biggest client. It was like a 6-figure contract that I had with them. And they let me know, "Hey, your contract is up." I was like, "Yeah, I know." And it's like, "Well, we're not renewing it." So I was like, I need a way to,
And so
I
this
was
was happening,
devastated and I need
like this was happening at the same time
concurrent with.
already. Wow.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I had. So this happened when I was let go from this contract. It was 2010. 2009, I had set up my website and put a blog on it and an opt-in and that kind of stuff, and spoken at that small event and started getting clients. So 2010 was when my biggest client in the TV world let me go. Didn't renew my contract. And I said, I need to find a way to make up that income. And I mean, I also cried and said, I'm so sad, and didn't know what I was going to do, because they were that was my home. That was my work home and my work family. But I sent out an email saying, like, hey, I'm available to my little list. I am available for these services. And I put up a real services page to make it easy for people to hire me. And the clients started coming in. And that's when I segued into like this copywriting business that I have now. I mean, that was an early version of it, and I no longer take clients. Now my whole business is offering courses and mentoring and helping people write their own copy.
Love that. That's so interesting how it happened from, yeah. And how did you know Marie Forleo? Was she just someone who became your friend? Was that like through, did she have something to do with VH1? I mean, like, I know she was like, I'm like, I know she's been all over the place doing it.
Well, she did dance at MTV, but that's not how I knew her. I met her in hip hop class at Crunch in
Oh,
2003.
wow.
And mhm, she
So
was
met
this
her in an
annoyingly
exercise
fit,
class.
quirky, gorgeous. Yes, she was so annoying in the front row, looking so good, hitting every move just right. And I was like, ugh, her again. She's here again. And then one day I started talking to her and discovered she was really nice, and we hit it off. And she was a life coach, but also a bartender. And I asked, are you looking for more bartending gigs? And she was like, yep, always. I'll take it all. And my boy,
I love
she was
that
the
goes
opposite
back
of
to
me.
bartending.
Initiative, hustle. Yep, all comes back to bartending. And my now husband, boyfriend at the time, was the GM of a restaurant that was opening. He needed bartenders. So I got her another bartending job. And so we were connected in that way. I would see her when I visited him. I would see her at dance class. We would walk home together, and we became friends. Fell out of touch for a while, and then she got back in touch around the time when I was in a creative rut at work, and
Wow.
just at the right time. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about what made you write this book, but I also want to talk about, because I've seen you share about this, and I find it interesting, like, that it even needs to be something that talked about. But I get it and I don't. But like the idea of women choosing to not be parents, and like I have chosen to be a
Yeah.
parent. I always wanted to be a parent, but I've at the same time never felt like everybody should be a parent. I would say I have like half of my friends are people who are choosing to never have kids, and half have kids, and it's like, great, that's your choice. But again, maybe it's like I'm always so interested, like, wow, like, do people really struggle with that? Is it more like, I'm not asking you, I don't want to be like, oh, why have you chosen not to have kids? Like, because that's whatever is your choice is your choice. But like, what do you think is the, like, I was going to say obsession, not obsession, but like this, like, I don't know, like such a big interest in it. And like, I keep hearing more about like, yes, let's talk about how we're not having kids, which is good. Because again, I think, of course, if somebody's out there, they're struggling, like to see someone else, it like, it gives you permission of like, oh, I'm not alone. Okay, this, like, resonate that. But yeah, I
Yes.
just wanted to get into that a little bit. Like, what do you think?
So you're asking, like, why is
I
it a
don't know
cultural
what the fuck I'm
phenomenon
asking.
right now? Like people coming out about talking about not having kids. Um, is
Maybe,
that
or
what you're
like,
asking?
or
Like,
like, do you think is it as someone who is choosing that and then talking about it? Is it because like, is there this pressure? Are people
yeah.
constantly like asking you, like, whatever? Like, yeah, I guess like the talking about people talking about it more, like, because
It-
I'm always like, yeah, great, good for them. Like, wait, why does this have to even be a thing? But then at the same
yeah.
time, getting it, because
Why is it a thing?
if we only see the examples of we should, and again, the shoulds, we should get married and have kids, we should, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
we should, blah, 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 then you feel like something's wrong with you if you have not chosen that path.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason that I'm so interested in talking about it now is because I had a really tough time making the decision. I was on the fence for a long time, for like all through my 30s, because I didn't want kids, but I wanted to want them. I kept waiting to want them. Everyone said, you'll change your mind. It's going to hit you. You're going to want, and they would say, oh, it's never the right time to have kids. You just have to go for it. And I was like, but I don't want them. And I did feel pretty certain that if I had kids, I would love them and do my best as a mom. I don't think that I was the most natural fit, born to be a mom, but I knew that it would work out either way, but I still didn't I really liked the idea of not having them. I loved my life without kids. And one reason it was so tough to come to the conclusion, like, I don't want kids, to come to that hard no, was I think there was so much pressure culturally and in the media when I turned 30, or when I was in my early 30s. That's when Us Magazine started putting out that feature Bump Watch, and Demi Moore had been on the cover of Vanity Fair, I think, like pregnant and, loving her hot baby bump. And like baby bumps were everything, and kids and celebrity tots, they're just like us. All the magazines were obsessed, had baby fever. And I did not have baby fever. And I felt like there were no examples. I would Google endlessly, like trying to find examples of older celebrity women without kids, because I just wanted an example of somebody who was older, who had passed their childbearing years and was thrilled not to have kids and had no regrets. And the only one I could come up with, I could find in my searches, was Dame Helen Mirren. I just clung to that. Oh, Helen Mirren says she's happy because she doesn't have kids. And it's like, isn't there anyone else? And if you looked up like Oprah, be like, Oprah has it all, except she doesn't, because she doesn't have kids. She's got an avocado orchard and she has a media empire, but she doesn't have kids, alas. And so she was sad. That was the media's perception. And it was always heartbreak for Jenny Annie, because like Jennifer Aniston still hasn't had kids. Jennifer Aniston pregnant, Jennifer Aniston miscarriage, and then it was like Justin Theroux doesn't, their marriage didn't work out because she wouldn't give him kids. Like, what a shrew. So all around me was this evidence that you were just less of a person, less of a woman, if you didn't have kids, and you were going to regret it if you didn't. And that was terrifying to me. And so I finally came around to my hard no, because I found that my husband convinced me that we were on the same page, that he would be fine either way, and he would truly be fine if we didn't have kids. And after we had one conversation about that finally changed, that finally made me feel comfortable with the decision. And then people stopped trying to convince me that I should have kids. And so I'm saying all this because you asked like why I was interested in talking about it. Why is there this kind of frenzy around the topic right now? It's partly because I want to tell other women, whether they're younger and on the fence and looking for evidence that you can be happy without kids. I wanted to report from the front lines, like no regrets. I actively love not having kids. Like, I wake up, people say you don't know true joy or love until you've had a baby. And I wake up with true joy looking at my schedule and the freedom that I have. I love my life. I love my husband. I think that is true love. I'm convinced of it. And I'm sure loving a baby is a different kind of love, but I don't know if it's truer. So I wanted to let people know that it is okay not to have kids. And then people who are maybe my age or older and still feel guilty about it, still feel ashamed and feel like people judge them for it. I just want I want them to feel the relief of like, I'm fine. I'm normal. There are other people like me and we're all good. We don't have to be moms.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Like, I don't get it, but I was like, but of course I don't get it because I'm not living that experience, like whatever, but I make up. And even from friends too, when you said it was more that struggle of like wanting to want kids, but But it's like, too, yeah, and that's another thing. It's like, is this, sometimes it's like, wait, do you even want them, or do you feel you should have them? So you've convinced yourself, like, we can't even figure out, wait, do I want kids or not? Because my entire, everything the world tells me is I am woman, so I should have kids. I am terrible, selfish, this, I won't know true joy, true love without this experience. It's like, you can't even like hear yourself in like, well, do I actually want them? Or is that just what the world tells me I must do? And so I'm a failure for not, or whatever, evil.
Exactly. It's very hard if you are not certain that you want kids. It's very hard to figure out what you really do want and what people are telling you should want or will want. They're all warning you. I mean, there's a book, who was it, Mika Brzezinski, from Morning Joe, like she wrote a book called Don't Forget to Have Kids. I think that's the title of it. And I was kind of like, how dare you? I'm sure some people, it's like, don't be so involved in your career that you forget to have kids. And I resent that position kind of. And I think it probably doesn't occur to you that it's a thing because you're not judgmental about it. But most people who have kids are. Most people are in some way. They think they either feel sorry for you, like feel like there must be some sadness there, or they, when they're trying to convince you when you're younger and it's a possibility, they want you to have kids because either they want to share the joy of it or they want to share the misery. Like misery loves company. Some people just want to spread the word about it because they love it so much. And other people don't like the possibility that they could have chosen not to have kids, and that terrifies them. So you're an example of what could have been.
No, totally. It's like, wait. And perhaps that fault of like, it's like, who would want to admit that to themselves of like, wait, what if I actually didn't want to have kids and so I shouldn't? And then it's like, because you don't want to think like, oh God, maybe I made the wrong choice because you have these beings, whatever. But I mean, you also could like, it's like, great, but seeing that, okay, and now I have them, and this is obviously I'm going to follow through with this, and also, but so great, that person gets to choose differently. It's like even, back to the post office gene. What, again, making ourselves feel bad of like, I want to be a mother and I don't want to be a mother or a parent. Listen, like a parent, and that's okay. It's your life. Okay, now we've talked about the book, but so what made you write this book? Because when I heard whenever that you wrote a book, then in my mind, as knowing you as copywriter person, I just assumed it was going to end up being like, I don't know, teaching copy, I guess. And so then I was like, oh, wow, it's like short stories. And then when I got into it too, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is so cool. Like, was this something that had been stirring in you for a while, or what made you be like, let me put these stories out into the world?
This is the book that I always wanted to write. I always wanted to write stories about myself, a memoir of some sort. At some point, I maybe toyed with making it a novel because it might be freeing, but I always wanted to write my stories. And I knew that going into this, that the obvious book for me to write for my audience and what publishers would probably eat up and maybe bid on would be a copywriting book or a marketing book or a personal development book or some sort of how-to. And what I wanted to write was more of a how not to. And that's what I insisted on writing, because I have said this before. I would rather, you tell me to write a copywriting book and I would rather eat a bag of hair. Pubes. Oh God. I would rather eat a bag of pubes than write a copywriting book. And now,
let's not be expecting that to be coming. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
No. If I change my mind, forget I said that. But it's just that's not the book I wanted to write. If you're going to write a book is not an easy thing to write, and it's really not an easy thing a project to put out into the world. It is it is years in the making, especially if you're publishing through a publisher. And then you have to sell the book, and there's so much that's involved in it. Why would I ever do that with a book that I didn't want to write? Like, why bother? I'd rather make a short course on copywriting. I mean, that's what I do, and it will make actual money, as opposed to a
Yeah.
book is not going to make money. It might, in its roundabout way, like bring new people to my audience, and maybe I'll get to raise my fees or have something new to speak about on stages, etc. So there's clout there, but I didn't do it for the money. And and accordingly, it's not me. I mean, so far all I've done is spend money, basically, on the marketing. Oh my God, I spent so much money. I spent money with help on writing the book, like a writing mentor who I worked with named Suzanne, was paying, who knows, I might have spent my whole advance on her, and now I'm spending it again on all kinds of things for the marketing of it. But I can't imagine doing that for a book I didn't want to write.
But so what? You didn't want to write a copybook. You knew you were always wanted to write a memoir, like not always, but that was something like, like, were you even in
Yeah.
some of these moments, like one day I'll write a story about this, or like, like how did that all, cause yeah, there's stories from going back
Yes.
into how old, like, like again, like this is a big undertaking. I feel like even especially because yeah, it would be easy, even though you didn't want to, for you to write a copywriting book, a marketing book, a how-to book,
Right.
and to sell it. But yeah, it's hard to sell personal
Yes.
essays of somebody who's not a like world
Right.
renowned celebrity. Like, so I'm
Oh,
like very much acknowledge you for
absolutely.
wanting to do it and
Yes.
for fucking doing it.
Right. Right. What you're asking is, why did I want to do this so badly that I would go up against,
Like
everybody
you just,
saying, well, you can't, yeah, rejection after rejection. Like, no, you can't. Like, I love the writing. This is what people would say. Love the writing. The sample chapters are hilarious. Love the stories. But unfortunately, it's really hard to sell this kind of book unless you are a household name. And so it's hard to sell it to a publisher, and then hopefully not as hard as they all say to sell it to the public. And it's going well so far. But yes, these are stories that I always wanted to tell, that I love telling to friends. They would say, like, oh, you have to tell so and so of that story of when you went to Studio 54 and your friend's mother came in and ruined the whole evening, or the story about the filmmaker who I call in the book Martin Scorsese, but he's not Martin Scorsese, but how you and your friends almost got into a foursome with him. And so I've had all these stories that I wanted to write, and I love writing also about work and I love writing about the 80s and 90s in New York, because it was such a different time, and capturing the feeling of how it was back then, and writing about work, the adventures in the workforce, deciding what you want to do, that whole coming of age and coming into your own as a person. I'm really interested in that journey, and I wanted to write a book that would both entertain people and make them feel relieved that they are not alone. If you feel behind in your life, in your career, you feel like a late bloomer, you feel like you're sometimes the worst, you're not alone. There are others of us out there, and you don't have to be ashamed for who you are and try to fix it. Or maybe you can try to fix it, but know that not everybody is a superhuman who, gets up at 5 a.m. and goes to the post office.
yeah, I love it. And I love reading memoir and personal, essays. And I was going to say, before you even got there, that I was like, you maybe didn't write a how-to book, but in many ways it may be, because it's like how to embrace yourself. Because again, you're embracing these parts of yourselves that we can feel like we're punishing ourselves for. So like, I think that you are going
Yeah.
to be empowering people to be like, yeah, like whatever, if you're lazy, if you're behind, if this didn't work out, if you dreamed to be a bartender and you're terrible at it, like whatever, like, it's just like, obviously our stories
Right.
are all unique, but that's like, for me, I've always preferred, even though I did write a personal development book, but it is memoir stories in that, but it's like that's how I like really learn and expand and embrace myself, is by just reading other people's stories and seeing like, oh yeah, it's like giving ourselves permission to be ourselves and
Yep.
to whatever, all of that things, embrace ourselves, to be like, oh yeah, I could try this, do that, whatever, like, yeah. So I'm so excited for your book, and that yeah, who knows what it's going to set loose in people.
Thank you. Yes, I do like to say it's not a self-help book, but it might help you anyway. In spite of myself, my writing might help you. And yeah, permission is at the cornerstone of that is the cornerstone of everything here. And it's a kind of writing that I like to read. Like I love, have you read any of Sam Irby's books?
No, I'll have to look that up. The
No,
name sounds familiar, but
so her latest book, it just came out. It's called Quietly Hostile. And the one before it was Wow, No Thank You. And the one before it was We're Never Meeting in Real Life. And, or might be in person, but at any rate, her books are very permissive. Like she just says things about herself that you're like, oh my God, you can say that out loud. A lot of her stuff is about having diarrhea in public places. Like she has IBS and Crohn's, and it's
oh
and
gosh.
it's joyfully so. And so I'm really inspired by her work. Have always been inspired by David Sedaris. The highest compliment I've gotten about this is that it's like David Sedaris and Judy Blume had a baby.
Love it.
That is the ultimate compliment that I might have told somebody to say that because it's real. I might have thought of it myself and
You're like,
said, "Can you say
you're
that?"
like, actually,
But
that sounds like great copy. I might have written that. No, just kidding. No.
it might be that I forced somebody to say it, but it is still a high compliment.
Uh, okay, I'm gonna ask real quick the questions I ask everybody. One is, what does it go to raise your joy levels when you may be feeling bummed off or something? It's not like to be happy, but just be like, what can I do to give myself a boost of joy?
I usually, I this sounds so prescriptive and corny, but I go for a walk. I always go for a walk when I need to like shake it off when I'm down or tight or just fraught with, anxiety. Going for a walk and listening to something fun. Like I'll listen to podcasts like Bitch Sesh, which is a Real Housewives breakdown, and that's one of my favorites. Something non-work related, something that doesn't make me feel like, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. Oh, I should be working on my funnel, my online funnel. So that and watching some, probably watching some Bravo on my iPad, like putting away my phone, like making sure that I'm quit out of my apps and email and all that, and just opening up that Peacock app on my iPad and watching some good old Bravo that's joy to me.
Yeah, love that. Sometimes we need a little just distraction, tap out. I
Hmm.
ask everybody to apply
Yeah,
this phrase to their.
it's
Oh. Whoa.
no, I was going to say it's not a distraction for me. It's a pure obsession. It is nectar. It's like lifeblood.
Well, I meant like distraction from the things that might be
Yes,
hanging on us.
totally. Yes, that is true.
I ask everybody to apply this phrase to their life. What is easiest for you is not always what is best for you. So what is easiest for me is blank. What is best for me is blank.
Oh, geez. I don't know if that is, I don't know if that applies to anything for me because
Love it.
what is easiest for me is usually what's best for me.
Love
I
it.
think like making my life easy, when my life feels easy, it's best. And so, yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean,
And it's not
I guess
necessarily
what
like
is
means it's
easiest for
harder. It
me.
could be like your default thing. You're like,
Right.
oh, this. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Like what's
pretty
easiest for me is eating Haagen-Dazs. That's what is best for me is eating spinach. But other than that, I can't think of anything. That's
But
not
yeah,
best
you're
for
one of the
me.
rare people
That
that
is
actually like
easiest.
accepts yourself and for who you are and stuff too. Whereas like a lot of times people are fighting against who they are and making themselves wrong for it.
Yes.
That is the
Right,
unfortunate
exactly. Oh, you know
usual
what?
occurrence.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I did just think of something. What is easiest for me is turning down scary opportunities, like speaking opportunities, things that make me nervous. What is best for me is going through with them and feeling great about it later. So there's one.
Love that. There we go. Awesome. It was so awesome to get into your journey, and I'm so excited for your book to come out in the world.
Thank you so much, Trisha. Thank you for having me and for all your great questions about it. This is really fun.